We have some drama brewing among the Georgia Bulldogs faithful, and Dylan Raiola, the top quarterback recruit for next year, is now getting poached reportedly by Nebraska, which is, I believe, where his dad went. I'm not completely positive. I believe that's where his dad went. And this is just screams NIL and Nebraska throwing a bag at them. Now, Nebraska hasn't been good for a while, but they have one of the most loyal fan bases you will ever find. I would argue the most loyal fan base. So they will definitely commit money to the program. What are your thoughts on this? Just the simple fact that a team can just throw, $4, $5, $6, $7 million at a top recruit to get him to come and poach him away from a team that's like a blue blood now in the Georgia Bulldogs and the top program in the country.
Well, Nebraska was a part of the original blue blood. So, I mean, yeah, you mentioned it. Their fan base is as loyal as any, and you could argue based on the success of the program in recent years, it is the most loyal because they have not wavered in the face of just absolute failure. Now Matt Rule's there. He's going to get that program off the ground to heights. I don't know, maybe a college football playoff berth potentially. If you get a guy like Raiola, I mean, yeah, you're going to be sitting pretty. My thoughts on this are this is the day and age of the NIL. I mean, it's practically free agency every single year. Coaches will take interviews to get higher contracts in their own current circumstance. And players have a right to do the same exact thing. I'm sure Nebraska offered Raiola a bag, whatever it was, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, I don't know. And he's probably waiting for Georgia to either match it or he's going to go to Nebraska. Or maybe he balks at the idea of going to Nebraska and stays with Georgia. I think that this is just the day and age. It's the wild, wild west of the NIL where there's really no regulation. There's no rules. The tampering period is non-existent. Players, coaches, third parties are getting rich in the making. And I don't really have a problem with it because in other years, a program like Nebraska has absolutely no chance to get a player like Dylan Raiola. Absolutely no chance. And he would just go to the Alabamas, to the Ohio States, to the Georgias of the world. So I think that this is good. Whether you think that it's ruining the sanctity of college football is another thing entirely. You might have an argument. But I do like the parity it kind of brings in the recruiting trail that, a team like, for all intents and purposes, Texas was never going to get back. And now that they can spend money and, but it also doesn't work. It's just spending money doesn't work. You just saw what A&M did. They had to fire Jimbo Fisher. They had the highest recruited or the highest rated recruiting class of all time. They had like 8 5-stars, 24 stars. And those guys are all in the transfer portal. So I get, some people's concern about it, but you can't buy national championships, even if in this NIL day and age.
Yeah, I love it. And I really have two major thoughts. One is kind of along the same lines as you, is that these programs, I think a lot of people thought that it was going to be the big, huge programs, the Georgias, the Michigans, the Ohio States spending these big bucks. Well, no, they're not out there spending. I mean, they'll spend, don't get me wrong, but they're not the teams out there spending huge bucks to convince them because they don't need that much convincing. They're not going to give one high school recruit $5 million. They're just not going to do that. And now you get an opportunity for a team like Nebraska, who's a little bit more desperate. They have money. Texas A&M, more desperate. They have money, and they can go target these guys. And it does add more parity, and it's going to add more parity in the long run. The other thing I want to say is Georgia has absolutely nothing to worry about. Like, listen, Dylan Raiola is a fantastic prospect, and he could be an absolute superstar, but Georgia's going to have no problem getting, whether it's a transfer guy or getting the next highest recruit. I mean, I know they have another quarterback recruit in this class who I think answered a question when talking about recruiting rankings and, hey, Dylan Raiola is coming here now. And he just responded with, I ain't afraid of no recruiting rankings, which that's the kind of guy you want there. I guarantee you, this guy's probably got the right mindset that fits Georgia's programs. Like, he's not worried about $5 million or whether a 5-star is coming in with him. He wants to come in there, compete, play for Georgia, compete for national championships, and have an opportunity to go to the pros, which nobody does that better than the University of Georgia. So I think it does create an intriguing landscape. It gives people that want to go after money and go to a team like Nebraska, who may not be as good at developing you. You may not have a chance to really compete for a national championship, an opportunity to throw $5 million at you. You take the $5 million. It's a nice insurance. And maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, but they're going to be better because of that. And a team like Georgia, they don't got anything to worry about. They don't have anything to worry about. I think it's the funniest thing that people do and this is why I've never gotten into recruiting rankings, is complain and cry when guys leave their school or don't go to their school or flip commitments and stuff like that, as if you have any idea how this guy's going to pan out. There's so many 5 stars that flop. There's so many 4 stars that flop. These are 17, 18-year-old kids, and now there's $4 or $5 million involved. Hell, I would take the $4 or $5 million too. There's no guarantee you're going to the NFL, especially coming out of high school. They don't really know how good you guys are gonna be. I mean, Justin Jefferson was a 2-star. He's the best wide receiver in the NFL. The stars are yes, they mean a lot, and there's a reason why 5-star team that recruit the most 5 stars usually win. But these guys bust out all the time, especially quarterbacks. I mean, go look at some of the top quarterback rankings, and we're going to have to cut this short. I kind of wanted to keep talking about this for the last couple minutes that we have. But go look at the top quarterback rankings by class and see how many of them are going to the NFL. It's not as many as you think. It is not. I mean, it really is not at all. But we're going to continue this conversation coming up after the breaks. We got a couple minutes left.